Boomers should sell these 5 things before it's too late. And I'm not talking about your dusty vinyl collection. I spent 35 years in financial services, and here's what nobody wants to tell you. The system isn't designed to reward you for hanging on to everything you worked for. So, we're going to talk about the invisible tax you're paying every single day by refusing to let go of things that made sense in 1995 but are bleeding you dry in 2026. I'm going to give you a framework at the end. 3 questions that'll help you figure out what actually deserves space in your life and what's just occupying real estate in your brain. But first, let me tell you about the thing 75% of boomers are paying for right now that has nothing to do with them. Number 1 on the list is your adult children's lifestyle. I know what you're thinking. This guy's gonna tell me to abandon my kids? No. I'm saying you need to understand the math of what's actually happening. 75% of boomer parents are financially supporting at least one adult child right now. The median amount is $1,400 a year, but the average is $7,000. You know what that gap tells you? Some of you are writing checks for 30, 40, 50,000 a year while telling yourself it's temporary. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. 56% of boomers admitted they've sacrificed their own retirement savings to help their kids. 33% of boomers rated their retirement accounts, not for an emergency, for their daughter's down payment, their son's car lease, their 30-year-old cell phone bill. Let me paint you a picture. You're 65. According to Vanguard, you've got maybe $270,000 in retirement savings if you're doing better than most. Using the 4% rule, that gives you about $10,800 a year to live on plus Social Security. Now subtract that $7,000 you're giving to Junior, who makes $45,000 a year and has 40 more years to recover from his mistakes. You just cut your retirement income by almost 40%. But now you might be thinking, my kid really needs it. The housing market's impossible. Student loans are crushing them. And you're right, it is hard for them. But here's what the data shows. When you ask the kids, 53% of the adult children receiving support say they can meet their basic needs with money left over. You're not preventing starvation. You're subsidizing a lifestyle they haven't earned yet. There's a guy I knew, worked in manufacturing his whole life, delayed his retirement 3 years to help his daughter buy a house. 3 years. That's 156 weeks of your life you don't get back. Meanwhile, his daughter could have gotten a conventional mortgage, built equity slowly, learned to manage money. He gave her the fish, never taught her to fish. Now she's 42 and still calls when the car breaks down. This is where it gets really interesting. The AARP found that 75% of parents supporting adult kids say they have close relationships with those children. 92%. So everyone's happy, right? Except 42% of those same parents report financial stress, 35% emotional stress, 9% retired early because of it. You want to know the incentive structure here? Your kid gets immediate relief from their poor planning. You get to feel like a good parent. And 30 years from now, when you're 85 and running out of money, guess who becomes the burden? The same kid you're rescuing right now gets to take care of you because you couldn't say no when it mattered. Here's the thing about loans. There are loans for houses, loans for cars, loans for education. There is no loan for retirement. You can't go to a bank at 70 and say, hey, I need $200,000 because I spent my 60s being a hero. They'll laugh you out of the building. Number 2, and this one's gonna hurt. Your house. Not the concept of homeownership. Your specific, oversized, maintenance nightmare of a house that you're treating like it's still 1987. The oldest boomers turn 80 this year. 80. The National Investment Center for Seniors Housing projects 13.1 to 14.6 million older adults will exit homeownership between 2026 and 2036. That's a 42% increase over the last decade. You know what happens when 14 million houses hit the market at the same time? Supply and demand, baby. Your house is not the asset you think it is. But you're sitting there saying, I'll age in place. 86% of seniors say they want to stay in their homes as long as possible. That's the dream. Here's the reality. You're paying property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance on 3,000 square feet when you actually live in 800. You're heating rooms nobody enters. You're mowing a lawn you don't use. You're replacing a roof for the privilege of having 4 empty bedrooms. I talked to a woman last year, lives outside of Cleveland, 5-bedroom colonial, raised 3 kids there. Kids are gone. Husband died. She's 73. Her annual cost for that house? $18,000 in property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance. $18,000 to live alone in a museum of her past. She finally sold it, moved to a 2-bedroom condo 10 minutes away, freed up $220,000 in equity, cut her annual expenses by $12,000, and here's the part that broke her. She told me, I should have done this 5 years ago. 5 years of paying $12,000 a year to be sad in a big house. The MBA research is wild. They projected this huge wave of boomer homes hitting the market. It didn't happen. You know why? Life expectancy increased. So now you're living longer in houses you can't afford to maintain, creating a supply shortage for young families while simultaneously running out of money. But now you might think, real estate always goes up. Does it? Not when 14 million units flood the market. Not when senior housing occupancy is hitting 90% and there's nowhere to put the next wave. Not when the generation buying your house makes 60% of what you made at their age in real dollars and can't get a mortgage at 7% interest. Number 3, your toys. I'm talking about the boat, the RV, the classic car, the motorcycle, the jet ski, the thing you bought in your 50s because you finally could and now it sits in storage, costing you a fortune. Here's a story. Guy named Tom restored 5 classic cars over 20 years. Beautiful machines. Each one a weekend project that became his identity. Storage fees, insurance, registration, occasional maintenance, $8,000 a year just to own them. He drove them maybe 6 times a year total. His wife did the math, $2,000 per drive. Tom's first reaction was exactly what yours would be. These aren't just cars. They're my life's work. And you know what? He was right. They were his life's work. Past tense. He was keeping them for who he used to be, not who he is now. So Tom kept his favorite one, the first car he ever restored, the one with actual sentimental value, the one he actually enjoyed driving, sold the other 4 to collectors, freed up $180,000 in capital, cut his annual expenses by $9,000. And here's the beautiful part. He started enjoying the one car more because it wasn't competing with the guilt of 4 others rotting in storage. This is the pattern I see everywhere. You think keeping everything proves you made it, that you're successful, that your life mattered. But really, you're just paying a subscription fee to your own past. And the subscription keeps going up. Now here's the kicker, and I mean this literally. Americans over 65 are the fastest growing group of bankruptcy filers. The rate tripled between 1991 and 2016, and it's not slowing down. You know what pushes them over the edge? Not medical debt, although that's part of it. It's fixed expenses on depreciating assets they refuse to sell because selling means admitting something changed. Number 4, and this is the one nobody talks about, the second car. You're not commuting anymore. You're both retired. You have 2 cars in your garage depreciating, requiring insurance, registration, maintenance. I know a couple who tested this. They calculated their second car cost them $3,000 a year all in. Then they pretended for 60 days they only had 1 car, just to see. It was easier than they thought. They carpooled when needed, Uber when they didn't. After 2 months, they sold it. $3,000 a year freed up. More importantly, 1 less thing to maintain, insure, worry about. But you're thinking, what about flexibility? Independence? Fair question. You know what else gives you flexibility? $3,000. That's 7 Uber rides a week for the entire year. You're not actually using the second car that much. You just like knowing it's there. That's an expensive psychological security blanket. But now you might be thinking, what if we need to drive to separate places at the same time? How often does that actually happen? Once a month? Twice? So you're paying $3,000 a year for maybe 10 occasions where you need to be in two places at once. That's $300 per convenience. Just rent a car for the day. Number 5 is the hardest one, your work identity. You can't sell this on eBay, but it's costing you more than anything else on this list. I had a client, surgeon for 30 years, retired at 67. 6 months later, he's sitting in my office saying, I used to be Dr. Michael Miller. Now I'm just Michael Miller. And I don't know who that is. He started volunteering at a free clinic, not because they needed him, they had plenty of volunteers, because he needed to feel like Dr. Michael again. Here's what nobody tells you about retirement. You spend 4 decades building an identity around what you do for money. Then you stop doing that thing and expect to just magically become someone else. It doesn't work that way. The most successful retirees I've seen aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who figured out that their job title was never who they were. It was just what they did. Dr. Michael eventually stopped trying to resurrect his work self and discovered he loved woodworking. Started mentoring young doctors, not as Dr. Miller, but as someone who'd been there. Became Grandpa Michael to his grandkids in a way he never could while working 60-hour weeks. Your work identity is a box you climbed into 40 years ago because it paid well and society approved. Retirement is your chance to climb out, but most of you are too scared. So you volunteer in your old field, consult part-time, anything to keep wearing the costume. Here's the brutal truth. 60% of boomer workers expect to work past 70 or never retire. You think that's because they love their jobs? Vanguard says 70% of boomers who haven't retired yet are at risk of not being able to replace their pre-retirement lifestyle. The median boomer has $270,000 saved. That's $10,800 a year using the 4% rule. You can't live on that. So you keep working, not because you're passionate, because you're broke. And the reason you're broke isn't just that you didn't save enough. It's that you spent 40 years accumulating things that made sense when you were making money, but don't make sense when you're not. The house, the cars, the toys, the adult children's problems, all of it. There's a guy in my old neighborhood, 74 years old, still working full-time at a law firm. Not because he has to financially, he's got plenty saved, but because he can't imagine being anything other than a lawyer. His wife told me he's terrified of having nothing to do, so he bills hours at 74 while his grandkids grow up without him. That's not dedication. That's fear wearing a suit. Now, let me give you the 3 questions I promised. This is how you figure out what to actually keep and what to let go. Question 1. Does this serve my new life or my old life? Be honest. The boat you used when you worked weekends and needed an escape? Different life. The house you needed for kids and career networking? Different life. The second car for commuting? Different life. You're not that person anymore, and pretending you are is expensive. Question 2. What's this really costing me? Don't just count the money. Count the time, the mental bandwidth, the stress. That house isn't just $18,000 a year in expenses. It's every weekend you spend maintaining it instead of doing literally anything else. That second car isn't just $3,000 a year. It's the cognitive load of tracking insurance, registration, maintenance. Question 3. If I let this go, what becomes possible? This is the question that changes everything. Because suddenly, you're not thinking about loss. You're thinking about gain. If I sell this house, I could live somewhere warm 6 months, a year. If I stop funding my 35-year-old's lifestyle, I could retire 3 years earlier. If I let go of being Dr. Miller, I could become the person I never had time to be. Here's a practical tip. The 90-day test. Before you sell anything permanent, live as if you already did it for 3 months. Don't use the RV for 90 days. See if you miss it. Pretend the money from the house sale is already in your retirement account. See how that feels. Give away the same amount you'd save from stopping support to your kids, but to charity. See if it hurts as much as you think. Most people who do this are shocked. They don't miss the thing. They feel lighter. Look, retirement isn't about deprivation. It's about optimization, making room for what matters by letting go of what doesn't. The happiest retirees I know aren't the ones with the most stuff. They're the ones who figured out the difference between what they own and what owns them. Every item you keep requires attention, money, and energy. Those are your most precious resources now. Don't waste them on things that made sense in your old life, but don't fit your new one. You're not the person you were at 40. Stop paying to pretend you are.